Imagine coming home to find your carefully built mountain wall torn down by your HOA, only for the entire slope behind your house to collapse in a muddy disaster. This is the story of one homeowner's fight against a power-hungry HOA, and the chaos that followed when nature fought back. If you love jaw-dropping HOA drama, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next part of this wild story. Let's dive into the madness. The mountain property was a dream come true for Sarah, a single mother who had saved for years to buy her slice of paradise. Nestled at the base of a steep, forested slope in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the house was modest but perfect. Its backyard, however, was a challenge. The slope loomed over her property, a wall of loose soil and rock that seemed to teeter on the edge of collapse with every heavy rain. Sarah, practical and determined, knew she had to act fast to protect her home. She spent months researching, consulting engineers, and designing a retaining wall to stabilize the slope. The wall was her pride and joy, sturdy concrete blocks reinforced with steel, blending seamlessly into the natural landscape with native plants tucked between the stones. It wasn't just functional, it was beautiful, a testament to her hard work and love for her new home. But the neighborhood's homeowners association, led by the iron-fisted Karen Whitaker, had other ideas. Karen was the kind of HOA president who thrived on control. Her emails were legendary, long passive-aggressive screeds about mailbox uniformity, grass height, and the precise shade of beige allowed for front doors. Sarah had heard the rumors about Karen's reign of terror before moving in, but she figured she could keep her head down and avoid trouble. The retaining wall, though, became the spark that ignited a firestorm. Karen claimed it violated HOA rules, citing a vague clause about unauthorized structural modifications. Sarah had submitted plans to the HOA board months earlier, but Karen, who had a habit of losing paperwork that didn't suit her, insisted no such approval existed. The truth was, Karen didn't like Sarah. She saw the single mother as an outsider, someone who didn't fit the neighborhood's cookie-cutter mold. The wall in Karen's eyes was a personal affront, a symbol of defiance against her authority. The first warning came in the form of a certified letter, its tone dripping with condescension. It demanded Sarah remove the wall within 30 days or face fines. Sarah, stunned, tried to reason with the board, presenting her engineering reports and proof of her application. The board, a group of Karen's loyal followers, dismissed her evidence. They didn't care about the slope's instability or the safety of Sarah's home. To them, rules were rules, and Karen was the rulemaker. Sarah refused to back down. She wasn't about to dismantle a $15,000 wall that was protecting her property. She ignored the letter, hoping the HOA would let it go. But Karen wasn't one to let things go. She escalated quickly, hiring a contractor to tear down the wall without Sarah's consent. Sarah came home one afternoon to find her backyard in ruins, chunks of concrete scattered across the grass, the slope exposed and vulnerable. Her heart sank as she realized the extent of the destruction. The wall was gone, and with it her sense of security. The aftermath was immediate. Without the wall, the slope began to shift. Heavy rains had been forecast for weeks, and Sarah could already see small rivulets of mud trickling down the hillside. She pleaded with the HOA to reconsider, warning them of the potential for a landslide. Karen, unmoved, sent another letter, this time finding Sarah for the mess left by the contractor. The audacity was staggering. Sarah's attempts to rebuild were thwarted at every turn. Karen had the HOA's lawyer send cease and desist notices, claiming any new construction would lead to legal action. Sarah felt trapped, her dream home now a ticking time bomb. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip, some neighbors sympathizing with Sarah, others siding with Karen out of fear or loyalty. The tension was palpable, a storm brewing not just on the slope but in the community itself. As the rains arrived, Sarah's worst fears began to materialize. The slope, now unsupported, started to erode. Mud oozed into her backyard, pooling against her patio and seeping under her back door. She spent nights frantically laying tarps and digging trenches to divert the flow, but it was a losing battle. The HOA, meanwhile, remained silent, refusing to acknowledge their role in the disaster. Karen, ever the opportunist, began spreading rumors that Sarah's negligence had caused the problem, conveniently ignoring the fact that the wall's removal was her doing. Sarah's frustration grew, but so did her resolve. She began documenting everything: photos of the mud, copies of her ignored emails, recordings of Karen's dismissive voicemails. She wasn't just fighting for her home now. She was fighting for justice. The rains grew heavier and the slope's instability became undeniable. Cracks appeared in the soil, widening with each downpour. Sarah's backyard was a swamp, her patio buried under a foot of sludge. She contacted a lawyer, a kind woman who specialized in HOA disputes, and took Sarah's case pro bono after hearing the full story. The lawyer warned that fighting the HOA would be an uphill battle, but Sarah was ready. She filed a formal complaint, demanding the HOA cover the cost of repairs and a new wall. The board predictably stonewalled her, but the legal pressure began to rattle Karen. For the first time, cracks appeared in her confident facade. Neighbors started whispering about the slope, worried their own properties might be at risk. The stage was set for a confrontation, but nature had plans of its own. As the chapter closed, a massive storm loomed on the horizon, one that would test the limits of Sarah's endurance and expose the HOA's recklessness in ways no one could ignore. The storm hit with a vengeance, a relentless deluge that turned the neighborhood into a maze of flooded streets and overflowing gutters. Sarah's property bore the brunt of the onslaught. The slope, already weakened, began to give way. At first it was just small slides, clumps of dirt and rock tumbling into her backyard, mixing with the already saturated ground. But as the rain continued, the situation grew dire. A low rumble woke Sarah in the middle of the night, a sound that sent chills down her spine. She rushed to her back window and saw the impossible. A massive section of the slope was moving, a slow-motion cascade of mud and debris sliding toward her house. Her heart pounded as she grabbed her phone, recording the chaos unfolding in the darkness. The landslide wasn't just a threat to her property. It was a disaster waiting to engulf the entire neighborhood. By morning, the damage was catastrophic. Sarah's backyard was unrecognizable, buried under a thick layer of mud and tangled roots. Her patio was gone, swallowed by the earth. The slide had stopped just short of her house, but the foundation was compromised, cracks spiderwebbing across the concrete. The neighborhood was in chaos. The landslide had spilled beyond Sarah's property, clogging the street and damaging 2 neighboring yards. Karen, faced with the undeniable consequences of her actions, went into damage control mode. She called an emergency HOA meeting, blaming Sarah for the disaster and claiming the wall's removal was necessary to enforce community standards. But the neighbors weren't buying it. Those who had once supported Karen began to question her leadership, their own properties now at risk. The whispers of dissent grew louder, and Sarah's documentation became her greatest weapon. Sarah's lawyer moved quickly, filing an injunction to halt any further HOA interference and demanding an independent investigation into the slope's collapse. The evidence was overwhelming: engineering reports, photos, and even statements from neighbors who had seen the contractor destroy the wall. The HOA's lawyer, a nervous man clearly out of his depth, tried to deflect, but the tide was turning. Sarah's story spread through the neighborhood, fueled by outrage and sympathy. A local news outlet picked up the story, airing a segment that painted Karen as the villain in a classic David and Goliath tale. The publicity was a nightmare for the HOA, and Karen's grip on power began to slip. She doubled down, sending out frantic emails accusing Sarah of slander and threatening legal action, but her desperation only made her look guiltier. The landslide's aftermath forced the neighborhood to confront the reality of the slope's instability. Engineers brought in by the city confirmed what Sarah had warned about all along. The slope needed a proper retaining wall, and the HOA's actions had directly caused the disaster. The cost of repairs was staggering, and the HOA's insurance refused to cover it, citing negligence. Sarah's lawyer pushed for a class action lawsuit, rallying affected neighbors to join the fight. The community was divided, some still loyal to Karen, but most saw the truth. Sarah, once an outsider, became a reluctant leader, her determination inspiring others to stand up. The legal battle was just beginning, but the real fight was personal. Karen's vendetta had cost Sarah her peace, her savings, and nearly her home. As the chapter ended, another storm was forecast, and the neighborhood braced for what might come next, knowing the slope wasn't done with them yet. If this story of HOA chaos and one woman's fight for justice has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe for the next 2 chapters. We're only halfway through this wild ride, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.